Matthews. I'm the daughter of Harold Mercer, 4-1. My father never talked very much about being with the 1st Special Service Force, but the force was very, very important to him, and his friends and comrades as he went to the reunions were. As time went on, he shared a little bit, and we started piecing things together. In 1990, I had an opportunity to come over here, and I had wanted at that time to find out where my father possibly had been captured. He was captured April 9th, 1944 in this area, and we believe possibly across the street where the monument is. He shared that there was a Catholic church. The Catholic church was bombed about the time he was wounded and taken prisoner. He learned years later that a church had been rebuilt. We think possibly it was this church. We're not sure. He also heard that in that vicinity, a monument had been placed in memory of the 1st Special Service Force. We think this monument is that monument. I'm going to read to you the letter that my family received after he was captured and wounded here. This was sent to my grandfather, Harold Mercer. Dear Mr. Mercer, it is with deep sympathy that I write to you regarding your son, Technician 4th grade Harold Lloyd Mercer, who is reported missing in action. On April 8th, 1944, your son was assigned a very important patrol mission. While carrying out this mission, your son became engaged in an actual hand-to-hand fighting with the larger enemy force. After the fight subsided, a thorough search was made for your son by some of his comrades, but he was nowhere to be found. Although I have received no official information that your son is a prisoner of war in the hands of the enemy, I have every reason to believe that this is the case. He has not been seen or heard from since that time, and we have no trace or information about his whereabouts. We can only hope and pray that he will return safely. The loss of your son is deeply felt in this command. While I fully realize the magnitude of your loss and the degree of your sorrow, I assure you that our feeling of loss can be second only to that of our missing comrades' loved ones. Sergeant Mercer served his country gallantly. I was proud to have him in my command. He shall remain in the memory of every one of us and shall inspire us in the fight against ruthless and dangerous enemies. Please accept my sincere and heartfelt sympathy and know that we pray for your son's safe return. Most sincerely, Robert T. Frederick, Brigadier General, U.S. Army. At that time, this was dated May 10th, 1944, almost a month after he went missing. The family presumed, because they had heard he was wounded, that he was lost here. Sometime later, the American Red Cross and others were able to get into the prisoner of war camp where my father was taken. He was in one of the Stalag camps, taken up into Austria. On August 31st, 1944, the family had inquired about that information. They had heard through a source that he might be in one of the camps. Now, if you can imagine what my grandfather, my grandmother was deceased at the time, and his baby sister felt, not knowing for sure, but hearing that he might be alive. They wanted to be excited, but, they didn't know. So they did make an inquiry, and on August 31st, they received a letter. This is in reply to your Form 2230 concerning the above listed prisoner. The War Department advises us that the father and Mrs. T.K. Kennard, the aunt, were notified by the War Department letters dated August 7th that Sergeant Harold Lloyd Mercer is a prisoner of war at Lazarett, Paid, Bohemia, which was Austria that we know now. Doubtless your chapter is already in receipt of this information, but we are passing it on for the completion of your files. Please be assured of our continued cooperation. About that same time, my father was able to get some letters home, and I am in receipt of some of those letters. Those letters were obviously confiscated and looked at. Some of the letters do have the Stalag camp stamp on them, so we know where they were the official letters. So it was a couple months later that they did find out that he was alive, that he was a prisoner of war, and he was in Stalag camp in Austria. He remained there until the end of the war. But this has been so important for me because I just have these little bits and pieces. And I got to come here in 2002, and I would like to thank Johnny and John Hart and Alessandro and Luciani and all the people that put these tours together, because it pieced a number of things together for our family. I received these letters after I was here in 2012. My aunt passed, and just as she was on her deathbed, she said, "Dee, I have some documents that you may want to have." So I am now in possession, of course, of the real letters from Colonel Frederick. But I'm very grateful that we've had these opportunities, and thank you. And so, in memory of my father, it touched me very much the other night when they played the song "Coming Home," and I just tried to envision at that time what it must have been like for my father to finally have been released and was going home.
First drink in Gusville.
Salute, Salancha.
That's what's tough when you know one of the Latin-based languages and you try to do another one.
To the force! Probably won't see it. I saw it 65.